I've chosen the trigger, betrayed by a best friend. Longtime friend steals his idea, partner, or position. Let me tell you how it happened. How a man I would have trusted with my life took everything from me, and how I built myself back up just to watch him choke on the truth. For most of my adult life, I believed loyalty was the strongest currency between men. I grew up with Darren. We met in high school, when life was nothing but cracked asphalt basketball courts and shared dreams about making it big. We were inseparable. I was the listener, the quiet problem solver, and he was the big personality who could talk his way into any room. After college, we decided to put our heads together and start a tech company, a small startup built out of my garage with old computers, the smell of burnt coffee in the air, and whiteboards covered in my handwriting. He told everyone he'd never met anyone as driven as me, and I believed him. I did the coding, the late-night troubleshooting, the endless research. Darren focused on meetings, investors, and brand image. I trusted him completely. Every password, every concept, every prototype was shared with him. He was my brother in all but blood. That's what makes the next part so hard to say. Because betrayal from a stranger hurts, but betrayal from family leaves a wound that never fully closes. One morning, I got an email that hit me like a brick to the chest. It was from an investor I'd been courting for months, a man who had promised to back our project, except he wasn't interested anymore. I didn't know it then. But at that exact time, Darren was in another city. He was in a suit, sitting in a meeting, pitching my entire idea as his own. My designs, my algorithms, the product we had bled over for 2 years. He'd registered the company under his name alone. He cut me out legally, without so much as a message. The investors bought it. They funded him. The first time I saw his face on the news, announcing our product's launch, I nearly smashed the TV. My hands trembled. My chest felt hollow. I remember the taste of rust in my mouth. That sharp, metallic shock you get when rage mixes with disbelief. I called him. No answer. I wrote to him. Silence. When I finally tracked him down, he smirked and said, "You were the guy behind the curtain. They wouldn't buy it with your face on it. I did what had to be done." That moment broke something in me. I walked away from that meeting, feeling like a ghost wearing a man's skin. Everything reminded me of that betrayal. The logo he'd stolen, the way he mimicked my pitch lines from memory. I sat in my apartment with the blinds closed, listening to the distant hum of traffic and wondering if all that trust had been worth wasting my best years. But hatred is a strange fuel. Once the grief settles, it hardens. I decided I wasn't going to let him keep my future. Not by screaming at him, not by suing him, but by outsmarting him. I started small, signing up for night classes in finance and marketing, reading every book on intellectual property law I could find. In coffee shops, I sat with a notebook, mapping out something bigger, better. I studied what Darren was doing, not to admire him, but to take him apart piece by piece. His code had gaps. His customer service was sloppy. He was too busy being the face of the company to see the cracks forming underneath. I made calls using a different name, approached frustrated clients, and offered them fixes to the problems Darren couldn't solve. A smell of printer ink became my constant companion as I printed proposals late at night. I reached out to engineers who'd been burned by Darren too. They remembered his arrogance. Slowly, I built a team from the disillusioned ex-loyals he'd pushed away. We used my original designs, the parts he didn't even understand, to create a new product that made his look like a toy. We worked underground for 18 months, never breathing a word to anyone outside our circle. Every click of my keyboard was like the tightening of a noose. Then came the day I chose to strike, the day Darren was set to give his keynote speech at a global tech conference, boasting about his innovation. I walked into that hall wearing a suit I'd bought second-hand, feeling a calm so deep it almost scared me. My team had set everything up behind the scenes. As he started his speech, I waited. Right after he finished explaining the unique capabilities of his system, the giant projector screen behind him flickered, and then my logo appeared. My face, my product. Live demonstrations streamed in from customers already using what we'd built. Seamless, efficient, flawless. Headlines were already blasting out from press contacts I'd tipped off. Reporters in that room turned from him to me. The sound of camera shutters was deafening. Darren froze. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. I stepped forward and in front of hundreds of spectators and cameras, told the truth. I laid out the timeline, how the concept had been mine, how I had been cut out, how every shred of credibility he had was built on theft. I showed documented proof, signed by witnesses. I wasn't yelling. My voice was steady, like a surgeon making the final incision. The questions started flying at him, but he couldn't answer. Security escorted him off stage before the conference even ended. By the time I walked outside, the cool wind hit my face, and I could hear my phone buzzing with messages from investors I didn't even know yet. Within 6 months, his company imploded. Lawsuits, cancelled contracts. He had to sell personal assets to pay legal fees. Everything he had gained from me turned into ashes. But my story didn't end with revenge. It became something bigger. I used the money from my new venture to start a foundation for young entrepreneurs, especially the ones without flashy connections, the kind who get overlooked. We offer legal advice, networking support, and the kind of protection I never had. I've written books on strategic thinking, on building loyalty with the right people. I've stood in rooms full of fresh-faced dreamers and taught them not just how to grow a business, but how to protect its soul. Sometimes I think about Darren, about whether he lies awake, wondering how it all slipped away. I never see him now. I don't need to. The damage is permanent, and it's self-inflicted. My victory wasn't just about taking back what was mine. It was about proving that brute force charisma is empty without substance behind it. I've learned that trust is earned in drops and lost in buckets. And once it's gone, it doesn't come back. Every success I've had since carries the weight of that lesson, and I wear it like armor. Some nights, I sit alone in my home office, the quiet hum of the server, the faint scent of fresh coffee in the air, and I think about the boy on the cracked asphalt basketball court who believed in loyalty above all else. He's gone. In his place is a man who knows that justice isn't always loud. It can be cold, calculated, and absolute. And when it is, it lasts. If this story moved you, like, share, and subscribe to this channel.